Our keynote speaker is Christian Page. Woo! Okay. Christian Page is an Emmy-nominated spoken word poet, a professional speaker, and an educator who speaks at schools, conferences, and events across the United States. He was born and raised here in Tacoma, whoop, whoop, and he currently lives here and teaches as well. He believes that our voice is our most powerful tool and encourages others to use this voice to advocate, interrupt, empower, and teach. Christian often uses one sentence to summarize himself. He says, "I am just a somebody who wants community to work for everybody." Christian Page, everybody.
Yo, can y'all give it up for Molly one time? Awesome. And I'm so excited and so honored to have the opportunity to be here with you all today. And before I get started, right, I think that there's a tradition to have, and I just want to say thank you to a couple of people. Can I thank some folks? Will y'all join me in thanking some folks? So I've been let know, right, that Molly was actually the person who made it possible for me to be here today. So will y'all give it up for Molly and show some Molly some love? Can we also find ourselves in appreciation for all of the instructors that are here? Awesome. And I think oftentimes we forget because we're not connected to the individuals who are present here, right? But can we just give a round of applause for the convention staff, the audio folks, everybody who's making this possible today? Awesome. I am, my grandmother is one of the most important people in my life. My grandmother always says, right, like, and my grandma's a beautiful Southern woman from Louisiana, and this is how she would say it. She would go, "Baby, make sure you give me my flowers while I'm here, because I don't want you to be in a place of regret when I'm gone." And so what I will offer you today, right, like, is to be in a space of gratitude. There's a lot of people who made it possible for you all to be here today. There are a lot of people who sacrificed. Y'all, it's a Friday. I could be anywhere else in the world. A lot of y'all could be anywhere else in the world, but we're choosing to better ourselves, right? And so the last person that I want to say thank you to is to each of you, right? You could have been anywhere else in the world. And there's a reason specifically why I'm thanking you. Can you please raise your hand if you're between the ages of 14 and 18 years old? Which should be everybody in the room who's a student, right? Some of you may be on the earlier side of that, and some of you may be on the later side of that, right? But the reality of this situation is that you are equidistant from me as you are from my children in age. And if I do my job right, and if the folks here do their job right, one of you will be standing behind this microphone when my son or daughter is sitting in your seat. So we're connected, right? My future is tied up in your future. Right? My children's future is tied up in your future. My daughter's going to be a ball player, I'm telling y'all. And there's going to be somebody who, right, like, you all are the future of medicine. Right? And if we do this right, like, my daughter's future is bright because of it. So I thank you in advance for the work that you're going to do. Can you give yourself a round of applause? Awesome. Thank you. So can I tell on myself for a second? Y'all, I don't know a thing about sports medicine. Right, if we were up here doing this, I might not have got any candy, right? It wouldn't have panned out for me. But there are a lot of things that I do know about community. There are a lot of things that I do know about leadership. There's a lot of things that I do know about support and nurturing folks. And what I would offer you is that behind whatever name tag you decide to put on in the future is still going to be a human. And that's who I want to speak to today. Right, somebody will win the golden trophy here, and somebody will, right, like, walk away with all of the accolades and all of these things, and we all are wearing name tags and all of those other things. Who I want to speak to today are the humans who are sitting in these seats. And because our futures are interconnected, that's directly whom I want to speak to. I will also tell you all, I'm telling on myself, is that I'm not really like your traditional speaker. Did y'all pick that up already? Right, like, I didn't come with the PowerPoint. I don't have a blazer in the back to throw over my shoulder so I look fancier. I don't have 3 points and something for us to walk home with, or like, these are the things that you should go and get. Have y'all been to that assembly before? You all know what I'm talking about? Instructors, cover your eyes. Did y'all fall asleep during that assembly before? Yeah. Right. Ooh, I'm glad nobody's being fake this morning. That's not who I am, right? And no shade to people who are in that position, right? There are brilliant instructors, there are, college professors, and right? Like where information has to be pushed along. What I want to offer you today is not information. I want to offer you some wisdom, right? Most of the things that I've learned in this world, I've learned at the feet of my elders, right? And they didn't come in the form of a textbook. They weren't something I can read about. There wasn't something that I can tout over somebody else's head, but it's wisdom that sustained me no matter what space I found myself in. So today, what I really want to share with you all is just a couple of stories about my life, some things that I've learned along the way, right? I want to share some art with you if that's okay. Can I share some art with y'all? All right. If you said no, there was not really a plan B. So we're just going to be out of luck, right? But I just want to share a couple of things with you all today that I've learned along my journey, right? And some of this might feel arbitrary. And you're like, where is he going with this story? And some of it might feel spicy, like, oh, is he talking to me? I promise you, if you'll stick with me, we'll learn something today. Is that fair? Does that sound okay? Is there more than 3 people in here? Fantastic, fantastic. So I just want to tell you all a couple of stories today, and we'll walk away learning something new. So the first story that I want to tell you is that, yeah, this is going to get spicy. Somebody's ready to fight me already. Do y'all know you're standing in the greatest city on the planet? Right? Is there any Tacoma folks in the room? Come on, Tacoma. Right? Everybody else is like, I don't like these people. It's all good. I was born and raised and still living in Tacoma. I came back and bought my childhood home. I love being here, and the reason being is because this community cares about itself more than any other community I've witnessed in the world. Right? I get to travel across the United States, speaking to student groups, doing things, being in different communities, and this is no shade to anybody else's community, but y'all, I love being from Tacoma. And the reason being is when I first stepped into high school, someone's waiting to figure out how old I am. When I pull up at school sometimes, have y'all seen the movie Mean Girls? Right? I try to just blend in and see if somebody thinks I'm a high school student. And then somebody inevitably is like, he doesn't even go here. You know, right? Anyway, so I walked into high school in 2007. And the Tacoma at that time was a little bit different than the Tacoma that we're standing in now. Right, in '07, right, we had all 7 of the comprehensive high schools in our district had been named dropout factories. There were people who doubted us. There were people who looked down upon us. Our graduation rates were sub 60%, and if you were a black or a brown male, you were probably sub 50. Meaning that I could stand in a room of my peers, and only half of us were going to be expected to graduate high school. Right, and so I'm familiar with adversity. I'm familiar with deficits and people looking down on folks, right? I'm familiar with the names that people would call us when we left. Is there any sports players in the room? I'm assuming that's a lot of the room, right? I remember when we got off the bus and the way that people would look at us or speak about us, right? Regardless of whatever it was. But the reason why I love Tacoma so much is that oftentimes when districts find themselves in that situation, they go out and hire a consultant, or they try to figure out some best practice of how do we do this different? And the thing that Tacoma did was that they looked at the students who were currently sitting in high school. And there was one individual, right, and there became a conglomerate of individuals who had a vision for the future of what Tacoma schools would look like. Right? The first lesson that I've learned in leadership, and I'll tell you the rest of the story after I name this, right? The first lesson that I've learned in leadership is that I have to know why I'm doing something. I have to have a vision for the future despite current circumstances. And I have to be able to push past anybody else's perception of who I am. There was a leader, right, who started a tutoring program in his girlfriend's garage, right? He was a high school math teacher at Lincoln High School. Is Lincoln in the building? All right, it got real quiet, so there's no Lincoln students here. Right, he was a high school math teacher at Lincoln High School. He started a tutoring program. That tutoring program grew. It eventually became a 501c3, which is a nonprofit organization. The nonprofit organization made commitments to 5 of the top private schools in the state and decided that they were going to give students from Tacoma Public Schools, the cream of the crop, a full ride, full need scholarship with the expectation that they would come back and impact their community. There were students, right, who said that they wouldn't persist. There were people who doubted the idea. There were all of these things came up. This program came to be known as Act 6, right? And the whole idea behind it was that we can go to college and back together and our community would transform. I told you I walked into school in what year? Ooh, y'all was paying attention. All right, I'm here. Right? And by the time 2017 rolled around, we stood in this building, right, in front of our students and had an event through Graduate Tacoma. And we went from being a dropout factory or having our schools be named dropout factories to being a model for education and having over a 90% graduation rate in less than 10 years. The reason being is because people who were students took inventory of what was broken and came back to be teachers. They came back to be principals. They came back to be professionals. They worked in nonprofits. They were in sports medicine. They were ever, right? Anywhere in the community where there was a need, they decided that they were going to fill the gaps. And now I get to live in the Tacoma, right? That's a model for ed in the nation. The thing that I want you all to take away from this is the idea that we have to have a vision and a why for why we're doing something. Y'all ever done something that was hard before? No, y'all don't do hard things? Y'all ever had somebody doubt you before? You've ever had barriers in your way before? What I would offer you is that those things start to shrink when you have tunnel vision on the focus of the vision that you believe that you can create in the world. If you focus on the North Star, there's nothing that can get in your way. What I'm offering you is I don't know what you all are going to do after this, right? A lot of you may go into medicine. Some of you may choose to do other things, right? However this shows up, there is always going to be someone who says that you're not supposed to be there. What I would offer you is to hold fast to the vision, right? And the reason being is not because this is a fluff story of any sort of, right? Like, oh, let me tell the fun story about Tacoma, right? I'm offering that this is the exact world in which, this is the exact way in which the world has been changed and people have become successful. We have to remain connected to a vision. So if you all don't know, I love being from Tacoma. I love being from Tacoma. And the reason being is because we've loved this community into beauty. Whatever it is that you all decide to do, I hope that you keep steadfast to a vision. Can I tell you all a second story? It's a little bit more fun, right? Cooper, can you raise your hand? Cooper's in the room. Shout out to you, Cooper. So I was in the room with the leaders, with the student representative. Y'all give it up for Cooper. Right? And so I did not plan on telling this story today, but I think it's a really important story. And Cooper was like, are you going to tell the story? I'm like, yeah. Cooper sounds way cooler than that. Don't make me make Cooper sound like that. Here's a second story that seems like it has nothing to do with leadership, but it's one of the most impactful lessons that I ever learned in my life. You all prepared for this story? Right? This story takes place when I'm 14 years old. Right? Is there some freshmen in the room? Oh, yes, to the 3 freshmen. I see y'all. Right? Like, this took place when I was a freshman in high school. And I have to tell you all, like, I was not standing in the same body that I'm standing in now. Right? I'm 6'1", 220 pounds. I'm a large body. I'm scary to some folks, right? At the time period, I was about 5'1", maybe. Right? I was like 120 pounds if it was raining outside. Right? And I'm pigeon-toed. You all got the podium here, so you can't see. But like when I walk, my feet face each other. I wore a size 12 sneaker at 5'1", right? That's kind of wild. Like, anyway, I don't know if y'all have been there before, but it always looked like I was wearing bowling shoes. Right? And I was just a little bit awkward. Has anybody ever felt awkward before? Right? And they're like, oh, yeah, I know this part. Right? And so the coolest thing happened to me in my freshman year of high school. I was not the most confident person in the world, but I was always diligent and hardworking. And I made the varsity basketball team. Right? Y'all can clap it up for that. That's exciting. Right? And the reason why this was exciting, right, was for the simple fact that, like, at the time period, basketball is a really big deal in Tacoma. I don't know if y'all know. Right? But at the time period that I was here, we had like guys like Isaiah Thomas. Does anybody know who Isaiah Thomas is? Right? They just lost in the play-in. I cried a little bit. But he made it to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Celtics. Right? Was named 6th Man of the Year a few times. Right? Avery Bradley was another big basketball player that was here. This actually was one of LeBron James's teammates. He's an NBA champion, right? There were a lot of like really big name athletes who were coming out at the time, and I ended up making the varsity basketball team. At how tall? And wait, how much? And what's up with my feet? And I was a little bit, right? Okay, y'all been paying attention, right? And so like this was a big deal. And I don't know if you all have ever had an accomplishment that made you walk a little bit different. Y'all being fake today, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Right, and so I kind of had like a bit of a timid walk, right? Like, just kind of trying to hide from things. After I made the basketball team, I kind of started walking like this. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Y'all haven't been there. It's okay, right? But I was like I'm confident, right? Because I'm like, yo, I made the team. And I wore that as like a badge of honor. And because of this newfound confidence, I had a wild idea in my head, right? Somebody's like, oh, no, this is going to go bad. There was a girl who lived down the street from me. Oh, here it goes. Y'all have seen this movie before. There was a girl who lived down the street from me. I had had a crush on her for as long as I could remember. And I wanted to ask her to go to homecoming with me, right? Can I add some spice to the story? So I told you all I was how old? Which means I was a freshman, right? And she was a senior. People are excited. People are excited. Right? Can I tell you all, it's so strange telling this story in Tacoma. Like, often I tell it other places. But she was captain of the dance team. She was a cheerleader. I don't know if you all go to the schools where they put the big images of people up in the gym. There's like the big image of her in the gym. Like, weird thing, right? And at this point in my life, nobody really knew that I was a poet. It's not something that I had shared with folks. And so, here was my brilliant idea. I had a really dope leadership teacher, a lot like the instructors that you all have in this room. And I went to a school of about 2,000 students, much like Richland. Where's Richland's in the building? I've been to your school before. Shout out to y'all. Right? Large school. And at the beginning of an assembly, I was going to take the microphone and perform a poem to ask her to go to homecoming with me. Right? Somebody's like, this could go really good or it could go really bad. Do you all want to hear the poem? Okay, all right, just making sure. Right, so I walk into the room and I'm how tall? And I weigh how much? And my feet do what? Right, and I'm a little bit, and I stand to the microphone, and this is what I say. I say, if you didn't leave me lost for words, there's a million things that I could say. See, I could compliment your smile, or I might ask about your day, or I could gain up the courage to finally come out and say that I hate it when you blink. Because that's one less second that I get to stare into your eyes, and I hope that when you think that all of your thoughts are similar to mine, because when I'm thinking about you, I just hope that you're thinking about me, and how that space between your fingers are where mine is supposed to be, because I want to hold your hand everywhere for everyone to see, and I want my boys to make fun of me so that I can be embarrassed. And I want you to take me home so that I can meet your parents. And I want someone to get on Facebook and record this and share this because I could care less about a reputation if I had you to cherish. Because see, your beauty in its truest form with silk skin and the purest eyes, you can't help but make me smile. With your elegant shape and beautiful style, every time that you come around, I just hope that you stay for a while. And if you didn't leave me lost for words, I would tell you that when you speak, the world around me stands still and only your voice matters. And I get nervous and I have butterflies and my heart starts to patter and I get to forgetting my name and my thoughts get all scattered. I get to envying any man that's ever left your heart shattered. Because see, I'd pick up the pieces and I'd put them back together in hopes that maybe one day you can get to know me better than my dream come true and me and you can be together. Because I feel like Prince Charming when I listen to the sweet syllables coming from Cinderella. So if the glass slipper fits and these feelings are real, then a prince and a princess should finally seal the deal. And we live happily ever after on a castle on a hill. And look back at this day when I told you how I feel when you go to homecoming with me. Right? Did you all feel the awkward pause at the end before you all started clapping? So in my mind, that awkward pause lasted 5 minutes, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm oh, did this work? Did it not? Right? I'm kind of right? Good thing I didn't wear gray or my armpits would have showed out. It would have been terrible, right? And I'm sitting here, it's awkward. I'm standing there. Her friend is girl, right? Gives it a tap and stars align on this day and she says yes, right? And I'm oh. Somebody in the room is what does it have to do with leadership? I promise you, we're getting there, right? And someone's run it back. No, we're not running it back. We're running it back. Save it for later. Somebody recorded it. Oh. Right? So, like, she says yes, and, like, this is golden. But I don't really know how to dance. Right? And so I'm somewhere in between, like, Napoleon Dynamite and Love Don't Cost a Thing. Like, I got to figure this out on my own. I got older brothers, and I'm definitely not about to ask them, because then I got to, right? Like, if y'all got an older brother, you know the ridicule that comes along with. So figure it out. I get the, like, really cool outfit, and, like, I got the tie that matches the shoes. Shoes are really important when you go to homecoming. You all know, right? And, like, everything's good, right? We go to pick her up, and when I say we, I'm 14, right? So, like, me and my mom go get her. But she's rolling with it, like, everything's golden. This is, like, fantastic. I don't know if you have ever had, like, a moment in your life where, like, this is it. Like, this is it. And so we go, and I told you all I walked into school in 07, so I was like, I'm from the pre-selfie era. So I was like, ugh. I went to high school before the first iPhone. And so, like, this wasn't, like, Instagram story worthy. Like, we had to go and, like, we had to take the picture. Do you all know what I'm talking about? Right? And you got, like, and the corsage and the boutonniere and all of these things have to match. And so, like, we're going, we're dancing. It's a ton of fun. The DJ's playing, like, really good songs. I won't tell you what songs they are because then I'll feel really old. And, like, you know, we have to go to the cafeteria in order to take the photos. Right? So as you all know, the line is pretty long, right? Like, we're waiting there. I'm given, like, the freshman head nods. Do you all know what I'm talking about? When you see seniors, you're like, yo, what's up, man? Right? Like, we're doing the thing. There's high fives and all of this cool stuff. And, like, I walk past a lot of people that night. Right? I'm in line with my date. We go, we take the photo, right? It's perfect. Everything feels golden. Like, we dance the night away. We go to Denny's afterwards. I love Denny's, right? Shout out to Denny's chicken strips. And it's amazing, right? Like, this is it. I'm laying on my pillow at 14 years old, like, take me now. Like, there's nothing else that needs to happen in my life. So as you all know, right, when you go and you all take school photos. Man, this conversation for another time, but, like, what were school photos like during COVID? Did you just submit a selfie? Or, like, anyway, conversation for another time. But, you know, you go and take those photos, right, and you have to make sure, like, your bangs panned out the way that you planned it and, like, all of these things. And so, like, everyone's pulling out their photos at the lunch table on this particular day about a week later. And I slide out my photos, and I put them right back in the envelope, and I exit the table, and everybody's like, yo, who goes back to class early instead of, like, enjoying lunch? And on that day, me, right? And the reason being is because, like, after all of this buildup, we've talked about me making the varsity basketball team. My walk is a little bit different. I go to the assembly. I perform this poem. She says, yes, stars are aligned. Me and my mom pick her up. All of the buildup that's leading up to this moment. I open the photo, and it's completely ruined because there's a life-sized booger in my nose. Like, huge. Like, if you've seen a quarter before. Right? It's gigantic. And so the photo's, like, ruined. Like, this does not go on the wall of anybody's house. Like, this is it. And so I told you all who's the most important person in my life? Right, my grandma. So, like, I'm smart, right? And so I call my grandma, right? And I pop out the pink Motorola Razr, and I'm like, Grandma. You all don't know what a pink Motorola Razr is. I'm talking to my grandma, and I'm like, Grandma, like, you'll never believe what happened. Like, I tell her all of the story, and my grandma is a sweet Southern lady from Louisiana, and here's what she says. She goes, baby, don't you got some friends? I'm like, dang, Grandma, yeah, like, this is MySpace top 8 days. I got a couple friends, right? And she goes, baby, how many people go to your school? And how many people went to my school? Right? And she said, baby, aren't you on the basketball team? And I said, yeah. She said, did you see your teammates that night? I said, absolutely. She goes, baby, didn't you go with a date? I said, yeah, Grandma, and it was awesome. She was this, that, and the other. Right? And she goes, I need you to realize something. She said, you walked past all of those people that night, and nobody told you that you had a booger in your nose. And I had to sit with that for a second, right? Because she gave me some really valuable advice when this was done. Somebody was wondering when we're getting to leadership, this is where it's at. Right? Is that she didn't look me in my face. We didn't have FaceTime yet. But she's talking to me directly, and here's what she says. She goes, I need you to learn a lesson from tonight. She said, I need you to realize that you have to surround yourself with people who care more about your well-being than they do about your feelings. People who are more committed to your alignment and integrity than they are to the moment that might hurt you a little bit. And one of the things that I've taken away from this in my journey around leadership, right, is that I can't be above reproach or coaching or anything that comes to, like I still have to be coachable and willing to accept feedback. Otherwise, I might not know if I have a booger in my nose. This is the part where people stop liking me. Do y'all still like me? Is that okay? Y'all promise to still like me in a few minutes? Right? That took place in 2007, but we're standing in 2022. And what I would offer is that if you're not perfect, like I wasn't perfect, there were a lot of boogers that have shown up in my nose. And we're standing here in 2022. I would guarantee that there might be some boogers that are existing in this room. Can I talk to you about these boogers? People are checking their joints, right? I'm not talking about physical, right? This is a metaphor, right? But no, like, I have to be serious with you all for a quick second, right? Is we're standing in 2022, and you all are going to be phenomenal leaders in the future. Have y'all ever seen the movie Spider-Man before? Right? And right before Uncle Ben goes, for anybody who hasn't seen it, I just spoiled the movie for you. What does he say to Spider-Man? With great power comes great responsibility. And you all will not always be in high school. Some of you are holding leadership responsibilities now. Your space is going to increase, right? And if we don't take care of the boogers now in 2022, I would hate for it to ruin the vision of who you want to be in the future. So here's what I'll offer you, right? Is that if you find yourself in a place where you're preaching more than you're practicing, if you find yourself in a place where you're holding leadership roles simply because it might look good on your college application and you're not worried about the impact, if you find yourself above coaching, if you find yourself in a position where you think you're better than somebody next to you, you might have a booger in your nose. And I would hate for it to ruin the picture of who you can be in the future. Can I talk really spicy to y'all? Like real spicy to y'all? Here's what I would offer is that if we don't take care of our internal or interpersonal biases, when we get power behind us, we can create structural barriers for other people. So what I would offer is if you're standing in 2022 in this moment and you're still using racial jokes, racial slurs, making fun of people for diversity characteristics that they can't control, if you're judging people for the way that they show up in the room, if you're making fun, right, like for things that are outside of their control, simply because of the identity that they show up in, what I would offer is that you might have a booger in your nose. And we might think that those things are small now or that they're laughable now, but what I would offer you is that you all are going to be working in medicine. And I would hate for you to create structural barriers for people based on biases that you didn't check when you were in high school. Y'all still like me? Yeah. Can I talk spicy to you more for a quick second? Right? And the reason why I know this, right? I got to talk real spicy because we like to show up polished in person, right? Like we like to show up when the lights are on and other people can see us. But can I tell y'all that I have an Instagram account? And somebody's like, what's the at? No, I see the way that we talk about each other in comments. I see the way that cyberbullying shows up. Right? There could be some individuals right now who are holding president or holding a title, right, who are using their Twitter fingers to speak bad about people on the internet. Can I talk really spicy to y'all? I've played Call of Duty online. And I know what most of those voices sound like. I know what people are saying on there. Y'all played that game? You know what I'm talking about, right? Don't have me in here by myself. Right, but what I'm offering is like we can't compartmentalize the identity that we have. If I'm willing to treat somebody like that there, how do I know that it doesn't seep into my practice? So what I'm offering y'all is that if we have biases that we're still holding on to, that we're letting dictate, right, the way that we operate in the world, that we might have a booger in our nose. And I'd hate for it to ruin, right, the vision or the picture of who you'd like to be in the future. Can I offer you one last booger? Right? Somebody's like, ugh, I don't want a booger. I'll tell you all, like, at the time period when I was in high school, the circle that I drew around the world was small. I lived from, like, Saturday to Saturday. And for those of you who don't know, that was, like, Jordan release to Jordan release. I see some of y'all in here, you know. Some people are still trying to figure out what I'm talking about. My life was really small, right? And so I didn't really think about the impact that I was having on people. I didn't really think about like the impact of what my actions would do for other people, right? And I was blessed enough to get the opportunity to meet two people. They're a couple, and they are like indigenous leaders. Do y'all know what I mean when I say indigenous? Right? These are folks who are, shout out to indigenous. I heard some woos over there, right? Shout out to indigenous folks. And I've been imparted some of the best knowledge that I've ever received in my life. Dr. Anthony and Dr. Chelsea Craig. right? And with this small vision of the world, like it was easy for me. Have y'all ever quit on something before? Ooh. Have y'all ever like let fear take over something for you? Have you ever talked yourself out of something before anybody even said anything to you? How many of y'all know what I mean when I say the word imposter syndrome? Right? It was easy for me to quit on some things or to be fearful of things because my circle that I drew around the world only encompassed me. One of the coolest things that I've ever gotten the opportunity to learn about was this idea of the seventh generation. Has anybody heard this before? Oh, I hope y'all are impacted in the way. I see you, family, right? I hope you are impacted by this in the same way that I was. Right, Dr. Chelsea Craig got behind the microphone and she started to talk about this idea of the seventh generation. And when she introduced herself, she didn't just say her name. She said her mother's name and her mother's mother's name and her mother's 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 name. Before she said anything or addressed the crowd, she introduced herself as a lineage. And when I think about, right, like the impact that I have on this world, right, this idea of the seventh generation honors the 7 generations that have come before me and the 7 generations that will come after. If I can tell you anything about yourself, and I'm speaking to the human, not to the name tag, right, is that the things that you do in this world matter. And if you think past just yourself, if your circle gets wide enough to encompass, has anybody ran a relay race before? Right, when you run the 100 or the 200 and you lose your heat, you just lost. Have y'all ever dropped the baton in a relay? Ooh, somebody don't want to admit to it, right? Or you didn't run your best in your leg, right? You realize that the person who was before you and the person who was after you are both impacted by that movement. And one of the things that I had to understand was that I have to do things to honor the people who have come before me and to create pathways for people who will come after me. Can I tell you all something about myself? You all probably noticed this when I walked into the room. I'm black. Did anybody figure that out? Right? All right. Somebody like, am I supposed to say? Right? But I remember like how easy it was to get intimidated by something. And I remember Chelsea Craig standing behind the microphone and speaking about all the people who have come before them. And I had to reflect on my own journey of what it took for me to stand behind this podium today. That 7 generations ago, that there were people who were snatched from their homeland, right? Who were shackled body to body, right? Against their will and came to this and endured. That there were individuals, right, who against their will had to do work in fields, had to do work wherever, and they endured. Right? That there were individuals, if we'd studied the civil rights movements in our classes, right, who were sprayed by fire hose and chased by dogs, and they endured. There were individuals who had to face housing discrimination, so on and so forth, and they endured. My grandmother grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, one of 7 children, only got the opportunity because of discrimination to have a 7th grade education, and she endured. My father grew up in what was considered the murder capital of the world, and endured so that I can be standing where I was. And I think about that now every time that I might be influenced to quit. Anytime that somebody tries to make me feel like I don't belong somewhere, I remember that my ancestors already said that I was supposed to be. That there was someone during all of that hardship who was dreaming about me having opportunity in the future. I don't know your lineage. I don't know where you've come from. I know that some of your families may have had to come from other countries. I know that some of you have come from places where you were, right, like running from something. I know even if some of you have not, and I'm not saying this to glorify, right, trauma or oppression or anything of that nature, but I know that somebody has worked on your behalf for a long time for you to be standing where you are now. And with our decisions, we have to honor who has come before us. Somebody has already spoken your position into existence and thought you were valuable enough to keep going. What I would offer is that anytime something feels difficult, anytime you feel like it's time to quit, anytime you feel like you're not supposed to belong somewhere, remember who did something before you, because they were thinking of you. And the other half of this is you have to realize that every decision that you make in this world is a legacy decision moving forward. I have children now. Right? If I quit now, they don't get to eat. right? If I quit now, it impacts how they move at a different time, right? Like I have no inkling of quitting because I knew who came before me and who came after me. What I'll offer you, right, is to remember the 7 generations next time difficulty shows up in your world. Can I tell you one more story before we get out of here? Right, this is the coolest experience that I've ever had in my life. Are you ready? Right, I'm big on civil rights. I'm big on anti-racism and things of that nature. And you all know, like, the biggest hero in this conversation that most people celebrate is Dr. Martin Luther King. In my lifetime, I've never gotten the opportunity to meet Dr. King. But I did get the opportunity to meet Dr. Andrew Young. Do y'all know who Dr. Andrew Young is? Ooh, I'm a holler at a history teacher at one of these schools. Dr. Andrew Young was one of Dr. Martin Luther King's best friends. He was an amazing activist. He went on to take political office. He brought the Olympics to the United States. He's been an amazing leader his entire time, and now he's a part of Greenwood Banking. Conversation for another time. This is a phenomenal leader. When I shook his hand, I was at the same time standing on his shoulders. Had he not done what he did, I wouldn't have been able to experience the things that I was experiencing in that day. I got the opportunity to meet Dr. Andrew Young at the governor's prayer breakfast. It was like the greatest moment of my life. He was going to be the keynote speaker, and I was selected as the student speaker by the committee. Right, and I go into this room, and there's about 4,000 people there. My bacon and eggs is sitting next to Andrew Young's bacon and eggs is sitting next to the governor's bacon and eggs. Is anybody in this room like bacon? Right, y'all are like, yeah. This bacon was like both thin cut and crispy. Have y'all ever had anyway, the combination is difficult to pull off, but they was hooking this bacon up. Right, and so I find myself there, and I'm like sandwiched in between 2 leaders. Right, like my hero is on one side, and the governor of the state is sitting on the other side. And so, it comes my turn, and they do the whole, and it's Christian Page. Shout out to Molly, right? And I run up on stage, and I only get 3 minutes because I'm on the governor's time, right? They're like, keep it brief, brother. I go up, I deliver my speech, I talk about snatching people out of apathy, about how important it is for us to be in community, about how important it is to try to change the world, right? And in this room, about 4,000 people, there's a standing ovation. And it was one of the first times that I've ever taken the microphone, and I stood there for a second like, man, this is amazing. And I kind of put on, can I talk spicy to you? Y'all ever thought somebody was cute and you were in a basketball game and you scored a whole bunch of points in front of them? You all know what, y'all being fake today, right? I felt like I hit a home run in front of my hero, right? And I do the high fives and stuff. As I'm on the way to my seat, I still have about half a piece of bacon left. I go down, I eat my bacon, right? And then they do and it's Andrew Young. And Andrew Young comes on stage, and as everybody is still clapping, he asks the room to be quiet. Have y'all ever been in a room having fun and an adult comes and tells y'all to be quiet? Don't you feel like you got in trouble? Right? This is exactly how I felt. I'm like, yo, what did I do wrong? And he tells the room to be quiet. And we're sitting there in silence for a little bit. Older folks like silence. Anyway, I won't talk about older folks. But he lets it linger in the room for a quick second. And he looks me directly in my face. Can I ask your name, my brother, one more time? Kyle. Ooh, come on, first name and last name. Kyle Kennedy, you're going to be me for a second. Is that fair? You need a second to get in character? A second to get in character? Yeah, you got it. All right. So I'm Dr. Andrew Young. My brother is me. Right? He looks me dead in my face, and this is what he says. He says, son, I've seen your spirit before. He goes on to tell a story about an individual who was working at who was a student at an HBCU, who convinced a group of other students to all put $5 in a pot, right? That way, if anybody fell on financial hardship, that they would still be able to stay in school, right? That $5 that those students, right, put into that pot has now become an endowment that keeps students enrolled when they fall on financial hardship. He says, I've seen your spirit before. And I know you have the audacity to believe that you can change the world. And I want you to keep that with you. But I need you to be careful what it is that you wish for, because I know that you're powerful enough to get it. Y'all, my eyebrows jumped off of my face. I'm like, yo, this is like my hero. I don't know who y'all heroes are, right? But this is like the guy. And he's saying this to me. And he looks at the governor. And can I ask your name? Erwin? Erwin, that's a beautiful name. Erwin, you're going to be the governor. All right, you ready? Right? You need a second to get in character? Erwin got it, y'all. And this is what he says to the governor. He looks directly at the governor. He says, "Sir, I need you to get your affairs in order. Because when this young man is eligible to run, your job is in trouble." Now, y'all, the eyebrows are gone, right? They went from woo, right? Like, this is my hero, like putting dubs on my behalf, right? It's crazy. And I'm sitting here in this moment just kind of reveling in it. And Dr. Andrew Young, with no non sequitur, he just starts to give his speech, right? I'm like, dang, we're not going to address the fact that he goes on to give his speech, and he gives a really powerful speech about the civil rights movement, right? And here's what he says. He says, "We went on to change the world. And most folks think that you have to change the world through power." He said, "The thing that we did is that we changed the world through influence." He said, "At the time, the biggest title between any of us was reverend. Nobody held political office. Nobody was the CEO of this or that. Nobody had a whole bunch of money or things behind him." He said, "What we did was that we galvanized the people in our community to care about the community." He said, "We had a vision for the things that we were doing. We saw ourselves as equal before some people saw us as human." He said, "We worked tirelessly, and the thing that was our mantra that we had to stick to was that we were going to consistently impact the 3 feet around us." He said, "We cared about the individual next to us and inspired them. And they cared about the individual next to them and they inspired them. And they cared about the individual next to them and inspired them. And before we knew it, there was national legislation that had been passed on our behalf, and none of us held political office." He said, "We changed the world through influence." Here's what I would offer you all. He said, "I know not all of you are from Tacoma." I saw Silas in the building, so shout out to y'all. "I know that whatever community that you're planted in, when you graduate school, whatever place you find yourself planted in, whatever role it is that you're in, whatever name tag it is that you're wearing, please remember your responsibility to positively impact the 3 feet around you. To make sure that the people around you feel cared for, loved, respected, regardless of what profession you decide to take on. Make sure that you're impacting the 3 feet around you." Can I give you an illustration of why this is important? Someone's like, "Go home, Christian." Can I have you stand, my brother? Right. And I just want you to think about this. If Kyle Kennedy decided that within 3 feet around him that people were going to feel loved, respected, valued, inspired, and decided to be their best selves anytime that Kyle was in the room, Kyle might inspire the 2 individuals who are sitting next to him. Can I have you all stand? Right? And if we just took these 3 individuals and they decided that anybody who came within 3 feet of them was going to feel loved, respected, valued, and feel like that they should bring their best selves anywhere that they went simply because these folks were in the room, they might inspire the rest of the row. Can I have you all stand? Right? And if this group of individuals, they just so happen to be the leaders who are wearing the blue shirts, inspire the rest of your organization, or maybe even just a quarter of those individuals, right, to love and respect individuals whom they're around, right, that they know that they should bring their best selves whenever these individuals in the room, they might inspire this entire section. Can I have you all stand if you're able? Right, and it might be this group of people in your school. This might be a grade level in your community. It might be a small organization in your city. It might be a nonprofit. Matter of fact, it might be the vision that you have in your head right now. Right? And if these individuals decided that everyone was going to be respected around them, was going to feel valued around them, and that they were going to inspire people to be their best selves, they might inspire the 2 sections next to them. Can I have you all stand here and here? And you all are getting where I'm going with this, right? This group of individuals might inspire the rest of the room to stand. Can I have the rest of you stand? What I want you to notice is that the entire room at this point is standing. And if you're not able to stand, please just give us a hand, right? All of this impact can happen because Kyle decided he was going to impact the world around him. And it only took the responsibility of the 3 feet. Oftentimes we think we have to be the best, we have to show up as, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, and we have to change the entire world, right? I promise you it's not that deep. If you consistently impact the 3 feet around you, it won't be long before you see the vision that you dreamt of, the ideas that you had come to fruition. So what I'm offering you today is to take on this practice. Cast a vision for what you want your community to look like, for what you want your future to look like. Remember the 7 generations and the people who have fought for you to be where you are and the people who you're fighting for their future and their pathways. And I'll tell you just in the same way that Dr. Andrew Young told me, for each of you to be careful what it is that you wish for, because I promise that you're powerful enough to get it. So I thank you all for your time. I wish you the best of luck in all the tests and quizzes that you take today. Someone's like, dang, I forgot we had to do that, right? And I'm so appreciative, and I thank you for all of the impact that you will make in the future, because your blessings, right, my children's blessings, my community's blessings are tied up in the effort that you will put into the world. So thank you all for being here. Good luck.
Can we please give it up one more time for Christian Page? All right, so we are about to break off after a couple more announcements. State officer candidates, please remember that you guys have interviews coming up right after this. We will be in the coat room, which is next to the registration table. And we will, after announcements, we will break for lunch. Please be back in this room at 1:30 for our first session of student forums. Everyone got that? What time? What? There we go. Okay. Here is Jake.
I just have a quick update announcement for both students and instructors. If you are participating in the EPAC interview competition, the schedule has changed slightly. So if you are in the EPAC competition, you should know who you are at this point. Make sure to check the schedules, the new updated schedules that have been posted at the registration desk. Instructors, if you have students that are participating in the EPAC competition, the new schedules have been added to the instructors shared folder as well. Who is participating in anatomage competition? All right, lots of hands. Throughout the morning, the first round is taking place. Make sure if you haven't gone yet, you touch base with your instructor to know what time you're competing in the anatomage first round. And a select few of you, 16 teams in fact, will make it into the bracketed style Sweet 16 tournament. So that Anatomage Sweet 16 is running this afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. It was not previously put on the schedule. So if your team qualifies for the Sweet 16, it will be posted on the bracket right outside the Anatomage room. After the first round has concluded. So between 4 and 6 p.m. is the Anatomage Sweet 16. Make sure you and your team double check to find out what time you are competing there. So that's all I got. Go enjoy lunch. And let's give one more round of applause for Christian Page.